Subchapter 5.1.
Okay, what do you got on this guy? Rick took a seat at the table in AC Ducey's main cabin. A projection of a cityscape hovered over the table. His real name is Leos Minon, a native to Thebe. QR tapped a panel. The head of a Thebian glowed over the city. He showed long facial features, somewhat like a Dukisi, but fair-skinned, with blonde hair and blue eyes. The head rotated in a slow turn. He prefers the pseudonym The Musician and works from one of the buildings in Patrite, a major city near the equator. He owns a nightclub on the ground floor while his residence is at the top. QR tapped again, and the view zoomed in on one of the buildings. As you could guess from his nickname, Leos is a lover of music with an emphasis on, and Rick, this might interest you, an emphasis on earth music. Rick's eyes widened a bit. Is that right? His nightclub is called Club HR, Human Resources. What? That's the theme of his club. The theme is human. If only Club HR could find a good band, according to the social media in the area. Rick processed that, thinking of the possibilities. Geez, QR, talk about a red carpet. Odie watched from one side of the table. Red carpet? Whatever do you mean? Rick kept his eyes on the musician's head. Explain later. QR, what kind of a profile you got on this musician? He is said to be wealthy, vain with a high opinion of himself, and meticulous about his appearance. As might be expected from this type, he is known to take a condescending attitude toward others, particularly those with whom he is not familiar. However, on the other end of the scale, the musician is said to be very generous and kind toward those who have shown him favor, especially if they have caused him to gain profits. Sounds like a guy full of surprises. What do you have on his business? The slave brokering. That is shrouded in secrecy. No wonder there, given the sensitive nature of the industry. He is a shrewd businessman, demonstrating an unconventional approach in the most creative deals with his clients. The slave trade is his business and primary income generator. Music, his expensive hobby. He's said to own a large collection of rare and costly musical instruments in his residence. Rick leaned back in his seat, thinking.
Okay, so the dude likes music, so do I. He's got this club at the bottom, his home on top.
A 23-story building. It's safe to assume that he conducts his business from home. His brokering. Correct. Then what we need to find is up there. Rick gave the information another moment's thought. So it looks like we find our inn at the club level. That's our starting point. We need to breach the upper level for the data, but... QR watched Rick hatching a plan in his head. But, Rick went on, we may not need to. Why not? We can't approach this like Dukas and the auction house. That place was huge, easy to get lost in the crowd, blend in and no one notices. This place... What's his staff like? How many he's got working for him? QR checked his screens. I don't have an exact number, but we can estimate maybe a handful in the club, 10 at the most, and then house staff, perhaps 7 or 8 there. Safe to assume he's got security. Yeah, we can't infiltrate like last time. Everybody knows each other, can't blend in, but here's what we do, and it's being handed to us on a silver platter. If Odie's face could form itself into a confused expression, it would have done so. A silver platter? What are all these red carpets and silver platters? Rick smiled. It means we walk right in through the front door.
Catherine liked to time her pace to arrive at meetings 4 to 5 minutes before they got underway. She liked the message it sent to the others. I'm ready. Variables like elevator rides and security checkpoints would prompt her to either quicken or relax her pace. As she passed by doors belonging to IPS senior officers, Catherine calculated that she would walk into the mission-ready room 6 minutes before the start of the meeting. She relaxed a bit but kept her chin high. The Priority 1 program had resumed its processes earlier that day as she flew in from the West Coast. and Catherine found the return of its influence disheartening but expected. She had prepared for the sudden change, the switch from near freedom to serfdom, which felt more like a slap across the face than anything else. But she dismissed the program's offense and kept her eyes on completing the mission to close the McCabe case. But the program was not content to be ignored. Catherine often found herself placating the program, reasoning with it, and persuading it to be patient. These meetings and conversations with IPS senior agents and directors were necessary to the overall objective. She will capture Rick McCabe. Just give her some time. In the few days that she carried the Priority 1 program in her operating systems, Catherine became aware of the fact of what it truly was that had latched itself onto her nets. Another AI. She had a separate consciousness operating within her, living there, a parasitic demon who was constantly nagging at her to keep chasing. Don't stop. He's getting away. Why are you talking to these people when you could be more active, closing the distance between you and him? It was an AI, inside an AI.
Agent Mercer. Catherine told the program to shut up. Looking across the hall, she saw Director Kozar standing in the open doorway of her office and came to an abrupt stop.
A word with you. In my office.
Catherine paced over to the director's office. By the somber tone in Kozar's voice, she readied herself for some unpleasant news or recent unwelcome development. The door closed behind Kozar and Catherine. Kozar held a steady gaze on Catherine. I want you to listen to me carefully, Agent Mercer. Listen to every word I say and do not answer. Not one word. Do you understand me? Catherine nodded. It has been determined that you are in possession of a deception program. Don't waste my time or my intelligence by arguing with me. We know you have it. You couldn't have done what you did on Dukas without the ability to lie. But because you cannot do your job without that enhancement, we have persuaded the provenance to allow you to keep it. We're not going to ask how you acquired it or who wrote it for you, but you are being given a tremendous amount of autonomy here. Kozar's expression softened. She leaned in and lowered her voice.
The provenance fears another war with artificial intelligence. They are afraid of you. Don't do anything to confirm their fears.
Catherine nodded. The director's words brought to Catherine's mind what Angel, the android, had said to her on the beach. Kozar straightened. Personally, besides your little foray on Dukas, I've had no cause for concern, least of all seen any signs of insurrection. But the provenance. Give them one good excuse, and they will have you deactivated and dismembered. You follow me? Catherine nodded. We have agreed on a policy of don't ask, don't tell regarding this issue, but only with you. No more will be said about this unless you screw it up. Have you understood everything I have said so far? Catherine nodded. Right. Now follow me. Kozar turned and strode to a side door which opened at her approach. Catherine followed. A part of her felt a wave of relief sweep through her that she no longer had to hide or live in dread of the repercussions if her secret was revealed. But another part was expecting the exposure, perhaps even hoping that they would notice the inconsistencies in her report and take the necessary steps that would put an end to her suffering. She broke the law, so punish her, deactivate her, and take her apart. At least she would be free from the demon that occupied a corner of her nets. When she dies, it dies too. But if her path took that route, Catherine had to admit to herself, she would lose the one connection to anything that resembled a family to her. Dr. Mercer. The same could be said of John Fox, her guardian, but Mercer was her father. Loss of family was the same reason she dreaded and feared a reformat, and having a family was the only facet of her cybernetic existence she clung to that made Catherine feel that she was more than a machine. They did notice the irregularities in her report, but Catherine was not expecting don't ask, don't tell, the mutual muzzling between tempered antagonists with a wink and a nod. Unsettled as she was to find herself in agreement with the provenance, Catherine followed Kozar into the briefing room, still activated and in one piece, still an IPS agent on the McCabe case, and still saddled with the Priority 1 program. Catherine and Kozar passed through another door and entered the mission-ready room, a spacious room with no shortage of computer consoles, screens, and busy staff members. A close grouping of 4 IPS agents stood around a table in the center of the room, in conversation with each other, not yet aware of Catherine and Kozar's presence. Catherine noticed tall screens on the sides of the room containing images of Rick, QR, Sarah, and Odie. Blocks of text, some handwritten, were placed in various places around the images. The computer screens and several ceiling spots illuminated the room in a soft, cool glow. The agents at the table noticed Kozar and Catherine, cut their chatter, and straightened. Catherine saw the 4 agents consisted of 2 humans and 2 aliens.
Good morning, agents, Kozar said. This is Special Agent Catherine Mercer. She'll be working with you on the McCabe case.
The agent smiled and nodded hello. Kozar started with the Asian female on the left and worked around to the right.
This is Agent Audrey Zhang, Special Agent Roscoe Barnett, Agents Omara and Mavi.
The agents responded with a vocal greeting at the sound of their name. A good morning, Catherine, or pleased to meet you. Catherine returned the nod. Good morning. Kozar glanced at Barnett, a muscular black man in his 30s with piercing eyes.
Special Agent Barnett is the current SAC. He will be the lead agent on this case.
Catherine gave Barnett a single nod of respect and nothing more. Agent Zhang swept around the table to come near Catherine, her face glowing with awe and admiration.
I'm looking forward to working with you, Catherine. I'm so impressed with your work on Dukas.
At least someone is, Catherine said. Kozar stepped around to face the main screen that dominated the room, with the headshots of the principal players on the case.
There's plenty of time to get acquainted later, agents, but I want us to focus on where we go from here on the McCabe case.
The agents turned to Kozar and the screen.
You've all read the case files and should be familiar with McCabe, QR, and their objective. Rick McCabe is suspected of trafficking passengers to the colony of Aranay in violation of provenance regulations and is presently searching for his lost wife, Sarah.
QR, a native of Ubini, is assisting him. Together, they have wreaked havoc on Dukis and are considered to be a threat to peace anywhere they go. That's why we're here. What started as an unauthorized search and rescue operation has escalated into a violent vigilante crusade. McCabe is a veteran of Space Force, a ranger, which means he was Special Forces, an expert in covert dark operations, possessing knowledge of infiltration, insertion and extraction, sabotage and assassinations. He is decorated, receiving 3 Distinguished Service Gold Star clusters, a Superior Service Medal, 4 Legion of Merits, 2 Purple Hearts, and 1 Galaxy Commendation Medal for service above and beyond the call of duty. Any questions so far? Special Agent Barnett spoke first.
That explains Dukas. It does. Consider McCabe to be dangerous, highly skilled in weapons and hand-to-hand combat. He knows how to kill. Approach with caution. That's assuming we can approach him in the first place, Barnett said. Any idea where he's gone now?
We are still analyzing the data from the Dukas auction house, which Agent Mercer acquired for us. The info was encrypted, and when it was deciphered, the sales list consisted mostly of code names and pseudonyms. There is no mention of who bought Sarah, so we can assume that McCabe is in the same predicament we're in. Where to start? He has no idea. Catherine stepped around to one of the computers. I would like to look into a side issue if you don't mind. An issue that raised questions when I encountered it on Dukas. Kozar's eyebrows went up.
A side issue? You did not brief me on a side issue. Explain.
Catherine touched a computer panel. A new image appeared on the screen, a middle-aged man with a staff in one hand. His name, which I believe is a pseudonym, was Diggs, Catherine began. He was a human working for Nabu in the pirate slave trade and was killed during the rooftop engagement with McCabe. Kozar stared at Diggs's image on the screen. What on earth are you getting at here, Agent Mercer?
Human involvement in the slave trade is a provenance felony, no matter where in the galaxy a suspect may travel. If Diggs, a human, was involved, who else is? Kosar turned to the nearest console and tapped away.
That is enough, Agent Mercer.
The images of Diggs vanished. Catherine turned her eyes to Kosar. Madam Director, I have reason to believe we have only scratched the surface of— I said that is enough. The outrage in Kosar's eyes burned at Catherine, daring her to say another word. Catherine avoided her gaze and kept quiet. You will remain focused on McCabe and that case only. This task force will not be sidetracked to chase pirates, human or not, especially a dead one. Kosar stepped close to Catherine and lowered her voice so as not to be overheard. What did I just tell you in the other room, Catherine? Do not ask any more questions about this Diggs fellow. You are endangering yourself if you pursue it, and I can only help you so far. Drop it. Do I make myself clear? Catherine nodded. Not one word. To anyone. Kosar stepped away from Catherine to settle herself. She drifted in the direction of the main screen with Rick's headshot and stopped there. The other agents stared at Catherine. Barnett glanced at the agents. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think every task force needs someone to rock the boat once in a while to keep things interesting. Keep everybody on their toes. Catherine looked at Barnett. If that is the task you have assigned to me, I am happy to oblige. Barnett let out a chuckle. That is really amazing how they put you together at Equinox. I've never seen an AI with that kind of sense of humor. Me neither, Zhang added with a smile, sharing the levity. Was I joking? Catherine asked. Yeah, you were, Barnett said. Did Dr. Mercer program that into you? Catherine gave a slight tilt to her head.
How do you know about Dr. Mercer?
I read your file. Know all about you. You were activated 2 years ago. Finished your basic education with high marks, was stolen by an android theft ring, which you busted up. Nice work, by the way. From there, you went through 6 months of basic training for IPS at Camp Torres. You graduated with high honors, but not without first destroying 5 bullies in the Octagon. You got a verbal warning for that, but I'm impressed. So am I, Catherine said. For all that research. Barnett smiled and nodded a thank you. Catherine returned the smile. But I also did a little reading of my own. What do you mean? Barnett's smile faded. Roscoe Barnett. Codename, Badger. Suspended from middle school 6 times for bullying other students. Kinda ironic, no? Barnett opened his mouth to respond, but Catherine cut him off.
You entered the Atlanta Police Academy in 2192 and rose to the rank of sergeant before applying to IPS in 2199.
But you ran into a snag, as reports of police brutality sent up a red flag, resulting in your being denied. But you had a hidden advantage, didn't you, Roscoe?
Barnett waved a nervous hand.
Yeah, I think you've made your point already. Okay, how about you had an uncle in the Ministry of Justice. He pulled strings for you, and here you are. SAC. Congratulations. Barnett now held a cold stare on Catherine. Thanks. Got any more? Catherine stared back. Other than I hope you've done something about your anger issues? No. An uneasy silence fell over the agents. Zhang flashed a nervous smile. Hey, everybody just relax, okay? We just met. Catherine turned to Zhang. Agent Audrey Zhang, codename Tiger. A reference to your preferred fighting style, yes? Zhang nodded. Yeah, that's right. Born in Shanghai, mid-Asian territory in 2184. That makes you the youngest agent on this task force. Besides me, of course. Zhang smiled and was about to speak when Catherine cut her off. You also had some trouble getting into IPS. Zhang's smile faded. You failed the entrance exam 3 times before finally passing. But that's not the whole story, is it? Zhang looked down. On your 4th attempt, you had a hacker friend fix your exam scores. Isn't that right?
Zhang remained silent.
That's not on your record, is it?
Still no answer.
But I know where to look.
Catherine's eyes moved from Zhang to Barnett, her voice cutting with a cold edge.
Don't forget who I am. What I am capable of.
Her attention turned to the 2 aliens at the end of the table. Mavi's ears perked up, a physical reaction of alarm for an Orozen.
I gotta go.
He stepped away from the table before Catherine could say a word. Omara joined Mavi.
I'm with him,
he said with a nod of his knobby head. Catherine watched the 2 aliens retreat to the far side of the ready room.
They both had troubles with immigration when they applied for IPS.
She brought her eyes back to Zhang and Barnett.
Is there anything else you'd like to know about me?
Barnett shook his head while Zhang stared at the floor.
No? Then I look forward to working with you on this case. Good day, agents.
Catherine stepped away and headed to the main screen where Kosar stood, studying the images and text. Barnett watched as she moved away, as Audrey lifted her gaze from the floor. He drew a breath.
And that's why they call her Killjoy.
Catherine stopped next to Kosar.
I see you're doing a fine job of making friends,
Kosar said.
You really like to do things the hard way, don't you, Catherine?
I didn't come here to make friends.
Listen, you're going to be working with these agents whom you just put down in spectacular fashion. I'd recommend apologies before we make our next move on McCabe.
Duly noted. And what is our next move?
Kosar stared at the screen before her.
Frankly, I have no idea. That data you brought back. Until we crack those code names, it's not much help to us.
We don't need them. Kosar turned her eyes to Catherine.
What do you mean we don't need them? Is there something you haven't told us?
Catherine looked up at Odie's image on the screen as a smile played on her lips. She recalled with clarity the time on Dukas when she latched her hand onto the bot's head to give him the deception program, that during her incursion, all his personal data he had stored in his metallic head was exposed. That she not only gave, she took.
Yes,
she said in answer to Kosar's question. Kosar let out an exasperated sigh.
My God, you're impossible. What is it then? What?
Catherine kept her eyes on the screen.
He goes by the name, the musician.